Hello. Hi. Thank you for coming to the talk. So this looks really boring. But I'm assuming you guys are all here because tools are something that maybe you're interested in. So yeah, I'm not even going to introduce myself because I actually put that in my talk. It's weird, actually, just getting into it and not introducing myself. So it's something I'm not doing for the next talk I do. But anyways, this talk is about tools. Tools. That was supposed to be like an echo or something. But anyways, so hello, my name is Tony. I'm the lead programmer at Mountains here in Melbourne. As the lead developer on Cuphead. I'm an indie game developer and I'm a tool developer. And I love making tools. And I'm here to tell you why. So Dialogger, who here has heard of Dialogger? Cool, wow, okay. Surprising, but cool. So yeah, Dialogger was my first add-on that I ever actually created for Unity. It was actually kind of my first like step into tool development. I worked on this for maybe like 2 years, kind of inconsistently. But yeah, I'll get more into that later, I guess. But it's basically, for those of you who don't know, it's a node-based dialogue editor and manager. Lets you make like dialogues like Final Fantasy or Mass Effect and manage them really easily within Unity. It's the type of tool that serves a niche, provides users with a tool that would have otherwise taken a fair amount of time and money for them to make, which is important, right? When you're making tools, that's kind of what you want to negate, right? So when I created Dialogger and I was ready to release it, I actually released it for free for a week before I released it on the Asset Store. In that time, I saw 15,000 downloads, which was really overwhelming, especially because I had to send most of those emails with like download links manually. I learned really quickly that I should just set up like an auto replier, and after like 300, I was like, you know what, fine, I'm not doing this anymore. So yeah, something to learn. Easer was, who's heard of Easer? Probably one, two, okay. Easer is a much smaller tool. It's actually something I created right after Dialogger. It's a curve-based ease function editor. $5 on the Asset Store. I swear this isn't me selling these to you. This is just the process, I guess. And honestly, this tool is something that took a few hours to make. I think I made it in 3 hours. And it saves me tens, sometimes hundreds of hours in every single project I use it in. And that's kind of like a really big point I want to touch on in this talk. I know it kind of sounds a little boring. It's going to get a little less boring, I promise. But yeah, like I think that's a really big thing to think about when you're making tools, right? You want to make something that's going to save you a lot of time. Yeah, we'll come back to those later though. I just figured I would, get those out of the way for now. Now, it's tool time. I don't know how to do the noise. I don't know if this is gonna work here. I did this in New Zealand as well, and Kiwis are how many Kiwis do you have in here? Okay, how many Kiwis saw this talk already? Damn it. Okay, that's okay. Kiwis are very non-interactive. They're a very quiet audience. And this worked for them. So that means in Melbourne, this better work even better. So every time you see text that's like yellow and in Comic Sans and underlined, you guys say it, okay? Yeah? With me? Yeah. Let's try it again then. It's tool time. Yeah, it is. Okay, indies. How many of us are indies? Awesome. Okay, cool. And for those of you who aren't indies, it's fine. We're not judging you. So for indies, every little thing matters. Every hour spent, every dollar earned. That's a big deal. Like a lot of us have probably released games where we're trying to like make something that's going to make us enough money to allow us to make our next thing, right? Like all this really matters. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on with this talk. Okay. Good question. It might be kind of obvious, but let's clear something up first. A tool is something that is meant to help with a specific task, making the task easier and or more efficient to carry out, right? That's not an official definition, that's just something I wrote. Maybe if I write the Tony's official dictionary, that will be in it, but we'll see. For example, Unity is a tool to aid in the creation of games, right? Similarly, RPG Maker is a tool to aid in the creation of RPG games. And Twine is a tool to aid in the creation of text-based games, etc. I'll tell you. So let's take a look at RPG Maker's interface. It's kind of not really daunting, but it's not simple. It's kind of complicated. You have a bunch of different windows they serve their own purposes. This isn't necessarily something you see in something like Unity, right? So let's look at the main screen of RPG Maker. This is the map editor. Who here has used RPG Maker? Okay. Who here takes it seriously as a game engine? Okay, yeah, because it is. It's still a game engine, and people have made some really cool games with it. And I understand that people don't, sometimes people look down on game engines that create things that could look similar to other games, but like, at the end of the day, it's a very good tool for what it does. So the map editor. So this is your main screen in RPG Maker. It's the first thing that pops up when you open a project. You have your tile editor, so you can like edit all your tiles and like how your actual maps look. You can create more maps. You can change the player location. You can add events to the maps, which are kind of what drive RPG Maker if you haven't used it. That's where all the game logic resides. And you can add transitions to other maps. Next is the event editor, and this is actually where things start to look a little bit different and a little more complicated. You see it has like a much more specific interface. There's a lot more things you can do on it. This is where you use this to edit events that you've created on the map screen. So you'll double click on an event and this window will pop up and you can actually tell this event exactly what you want it to do. So you use this for dynamic objects in your scene, NPCs, doors, switches, chests, core game logic. And this is where you also create like dialogues and stuff. Finally, and this is for anyone who here has created an RPG before. Or tried. Who's tried? Okay. This is like kind of the meat and potatoes, I guess, of an RPG game editor. This is what manages all the game's data, like the character stuff, the items, the weapons, all your enemy encounters, your tile sets, everything. This is kind of where all the core data is stored, and you reference it from here. So again, this is tailored specifically to making RPGs. I'll tell you. So RPG Maker is a great tool for making RPGs. It comes with everything you need to create a top-down RPG out of the box, including tools that make the entire creation process easier, right? This is an area where things like Unreal or Unity are very lacking. You wouldn't want to create an RPG in Unity without creating your own tools to handle all the heavy lifting, right? Who has tried to create an RPG in Unity without knowing how to make tools or anything like that? Okay, it's happened. How'd that go? Was it? You don't have to answer, it's fine. This is why tools are important. And it's good to not be afraid of that process and approaching that in development. Let's consider this. So you have an XML file full of, say you have an XML file for all your event data, or an XML file for your player data and all that stuff, versus these specific tools that were made to make this entire creation process easier, right? The difference between them is, one is boring, the other one is, pretty fun. But more importantly, one is very, very tedious, and the other one is, really useful. It's made to make the entire creation process a lot easier. The thing is, engines like Unity and Unreal they lack features by design. These engines are meant to be very multi-purpose and generic. And this is very unlike RPG Maker or Twine or any other game engine tailored for specific genres, because Unity lacks these things. The generic nature of many game engines means they lack the tools and features that you might want to use for your development process, but it also means that these generic open-ended engines are great for one thing, and that's being extended, right? You can create your own tools for them. This is the point of a multi-purpose game engine. They allow you to bend them to your needs and add tools whenever you need to achieve something. And that's really important. Again, you wouldn't use, were some of you about to read that? Okay, good. Good job. Again, you wouldn't use Unity or Unreal to make an RPG without creating tools that help you with that process. Instead, you create tools to help you with development of all parts of the game, right? Like an item database. Like this is made in Unity. This is just something I worked on for like a project from before, but like it's very similar to RPG Maker's like item database, where you have different like items, you can change the item type and everything, and just manages all your data. Or a like a variable editor to actually make things kind of more visual and less code based. Or any sort of property database. Like this is something that manages sounds that happen when you walk on certain floors. Wrong. So while intimidating at first, making tools is actually really easy. They don't have to be complicated. That's a really big thing. Is you can make a simple thing that's console based, like a VB script or a Python script or something, or a C# script that just runs in the console really quick and does something. Like for example, sorry, one of the companies I worked at, I started and they showed me how to set up a project. Like we had a very specific library, and the whole setup process was very, very kind of boilerplate. You had to do it the exact same way every single time. That kind of blows my mind because I was working with like 20 other programmers and no one thought to automate that process. So the first thing I did was I created a simple C# console script that would take the input name of the of the project, and it would go through everything, just rename everything that it needed to, set up all the paths, everything that it needed to. And it turned a process that actually took 3 hours into something that took 1 click. 1 click and like a bit of typing. And that saved us hundreds of hours. Like every single thing we worked on from then on was very easy to set up. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Like it doesn't have to be something that you make like, oh, buttons and lists and everything. You can literally have just one exe you run and it just does something for you, right? What's going on? Engines like Unity and Unreal allow for a lot of freedom when it comes to adding to the editor, right? Like Unity has its editor API, and Unreal has, I'm not sure, does Unreal have like an editor API? Does anyone know?
You can add comments.
Yeah, cool, okay. But it's also open source, right? So you can literally do whatever you want to the engine. Visual Studio also like Community Edition is free, so if you're thinking about it, allows you to quickly create like form-based tools, right? Like, and it's really simple, and you can do a lot of stuff with things like that. Even Flash, who here uses Flash still? All right, it's okay. Even Flash though has like an extension API built into like the deepest, darkest corners, right? I mean, don't go looking for it; it's very difficult to find, but it's there, and it is actually really, really powerful. Wrong. Oh, well, it depends. I spilled water. That's okay. Making tools can be time consuming or take no time at all, but is your tool going to save you more time in the long run? That's the most important thing to think about when you're making tools. You don't want to make a tool and spend 2 weeks making it, but really you're only going to do something twice and it was going to take 10 minutes every time. Like that's just kind of ridiculous. But I mean, it could have been fun for you, so who knows? Is your tool going to be used by everyone on your team? Cool, even more time saved. Like that's the amount of time you've saved times everyone on your team, right? And that's even more important. If planned properly, a custom tool can provide endless hours of save time. And that's, I know I'm saying that over and over again, but like that's kind of the whole point. For example, Cuphead uses multiple custom tools, including, there's one tool I created for our level system that was basically like, for those of you who don't know, Cuphead is a boss rush game. So every level is different. There's not much reusable like stuff in each level, which is weird when you're making games because usually you make things that you can use over and over again and kind of make a full game out of it. So I saw this early on and I'm like, okay, you know what? There has to be an easier way to kind of approach this and make it more usable and easier to set up. And so I created a level system that took 3 days to make. It was just a quick tool that it was like a window that you just select your boss and you change all the properties there, and it's just a kind of a centralized like database editor essentially. And that ended up saving us like hundreds and hundreds of hours of work. We would have missed E3 deadlines. We would have missed like so many things, or had a much smaller amount of actual game if we didn't decide to do this, right? And another example is like Easer took a few hours to make, and I use it in every single project I make, and it saves me tens, maybe sometimes hundreds of hours every single time. That was bad. Let's try that again. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Oh, that sucks. Okay. That's fine though. There's also there's hundreds of game development tools that already exist, right? Like you're probably already using some, like Unity, Unreal, like any engine you're using, unless you're building from the ground up, which is also fine. If you're building from the ground up, though, you're probably okay with making tools. This is an exciting time for game development because of the sheer amount of free and cheap tools that are popping up literally everywhere. You can find stuff, like there's the asset stores, but there's also like GitHub is full of like things that you can just add to any project. And it's just, there's so many things out there. It's really awesome. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like that's a big thing is if there's a tool that already exists out there, use it, right? Don't make your own unless you need something very specific. Someone else's wheel might be a lot more round, right? So let's reiterate. Tools are important, especially for ambitious projects, like specific genre-based projects that need their own tools and their own management stuff. Tools are easy to make, they can be, at least. Tools can save you a countless amount of time, but wait, there's more. Nice, okay, that was better, yeah. Well, we can make them modular so that they work with other projects, right? If we make them modular, we can share them with our friends so our friends can use them. I've seen that a lot. Like that's how a lot of really cool tools actually start out, I've seen, is people will make something and their friends will want to use them and they'll send it to their friends and realize like, oh wow, this is actually something kind of viable. If our friends are using them, maybe other people will like to use them as well. Wait, what if we sold our tools? Now this is the part that's kind of like controversial. It's like, everyone's like, oh, we're indies, like we don't want to, you know, that's okay. Sometimes like it feels like making a thing that's not a game can be kind of like detracting from what we do as like creative people, right? But that's not really the case. This is a very, very important point for indies, I think. Because in my case, when I made Dialogger, I made it for myself. I wasn't actually making it to sell it at first. I was kind of using it to delve into tool development and see like, oh, you know what, how easy is this? What can I do with this? And I made it for myself so I could use it in my own games. And I did for a while. And it was shit, it was really bad. Selling it was a major afterthought. Like I don't even know how I came about thinking about that, but I realized like after a while, after I was using it for a bit, that I could polish it up and actually sell it, right? So after a bit of polish, I actually figured Dialogger was ready for the public. But most importantly, sorry. Most importantly, Dialogger ended up funding me as an indie for almost a year by itself. And that's kind of the point I want to drive home. Sorry. At the time, I just quit my job. I was trying to go like full indie and just, you know, kind of trying to support myself. And Dialogger was kind of this thing. I'm just like, you know what, I'll release it. Maybe it will help. Maybe it won't, whatever. And for almost a year, it ended up funding me by myself. And that's something really important to think about, because if you're making a tool that's generic enough that, not even generic, but like open-ended enough that you can share it with people and you think that other people can benefit from it, as indies, or even not as indies, like even as like, you know, corporations or whatever. If you can make money off this and help it, or have it help support you while you're doing what you love, why not, right? So for indies, you can benefit from more than one way from the things that you're creating. Tools typically have a much smaller development time than games. In Dialogger's case, it was more of a, worked on it for 2 years, but it was kind of only like an hour, maybe 2 hours a week or something. Making a tool that you can sell can make you some money, and that's really, really important. Every little bit helps, right? Again, if you're making money off this tool that you're making, that's just more money that can help support you while you're doing what you love and while you're making things that you want to make, right? And it could even end up funding or generating publicity for you or your studio. For example, Slack. Who uses Slack? Probably almost everyone in here. Slack was actually originally created by TinySpec as an in-house collaboration tool before being released to the public. So TinySpec actually made Glitch. Who's here has heard of Glitch? Okay. and it looked really cool, but it didn't actually end up going where they canceled production of it. And they thought they were gonna go under, like things were looking kind of bad for the company. But then Slack, like they released Slack, and Slack has blown up. And they've actually rebranded, I think, as Slack, I believe. That kind of just goes to show that, you know, their tool kind of kickstarted them. Another example, PressKit was made by Rami to make communication with the press easier and less messy. And Flixel, who's used Flixel? Yeah, Flixel was created by Adam Saltzman as a personal library before actually being released to the public, right? These are all great examples of people or studios creating tools for their own needs and then releasing them after they saw how much potential they had, right? That depends on your development environment. That's the boring one. Unity has the asset store, so that's kind of an obvious choice. Who here is like mainly only in Unity? Yeah. Okay, what about Unreal? Okay, what about like Flash? Okay, and then yeah, that's it. So yeah, Unity has the asset store. Unreal actually has a new marketplace, which I guess like by now it's not as new, but it's still much smaller than the Unity asset store. There's some major potential there, so that's something to think about. Steam and Humble are both getting into selling development tools as well, which is really exciting. Like again, this is an exciting time to be a developer. Or you throw it on your own website and sell it yourself. Like there's a ton of ways you can do it. Right, yes. Making tools does not need to be time consuming or hard. Tools are useful for a lot of situations and can really help speed up development. If you plan ahead with your tools, you can make some money off them as well. It can act as a new potential stream of income for you and your projects. If you don't want to make tools, there are already hundreds of useful tools that exist just waiting to be used. And that's my talk, I'm sorry. It wasn't an hour, but it was nice and short and sweet. So if anyone has any questions? Any questions? Yeah.
How long have you been an indie dev for?
Full-time indie, okay. I guess I would consider myself full-time indie now because I'm working like with other indies at the studio I work at. I would say 5 years now. Yeah. Yep.
What's the support for the new tools?
Have you used Dialogger? Okay. So you're not an angry like okay. Yeah. That's kind of something you have to think about. Like when you're making a tool and you're selling it, you kind of are expected to like perform maintenance on it, make sure it works with every consistent version of Unity or next version of Unity. It's been kind of weird. Like after it starts to like sales start to die down a bit, you realize people aren't like necessarily looking at it that much anymore. So you don't have much. You don't have a lot forcing you to fix it. But yeah, you're kind of the expectation is there. So it does kind of get a little bit annoying. But I mean, that's expected, I guess. Yeah. Yep.
What would you say is the gold standard?
Like a tool that.
What would you say is something you look for in tool development?
Like quality wise, like I would say you want to make sure. There's a button there. I didn't know what it did. You want to make sure that like the developer is really active, that you can like talk to them and get a reply back really quickly. Like that's one thing I try to do is when people send me an email about Dialogger, even if I'm not making a lot of changes to it lately, I'll email them back right away as soon as I can. Yeah, you want to make sure that first of all it runs with the current version of whatever you're using, right? That's kind of important. But yeah, I think there's a very clear line between tools that are going to be quality and then tools that are kind of just falling by the side. And so yeah, I guess you just want to make sure that if you're making a tool, you want to be you want to make sure that you communicate properly, I think. But if you're looking for a tool, you want to make sure that that tool is kind of in active development still, or that the developer actually still cares about it, I guess, if that makes sense. Yep.
How much time do you think you spend supporting your
Okay. So Dialogger, when I first released it, I think I spent a good maybe a month just on it. Like I didn't have time for any other projects or anything. Like I said, like the week before I released it, it had like 15,000 downloads, which was insane. And so in that time, I had to there was a bug where it wouldn't compile to iOS, and at that time, 5 years ago, that was iOS was a major platform that everyone was developing for, right? So I had to fix that, and then yeah, I would say you should expect, if you're going to release a tool that you think might do well, expect to put a lot of time into it at first, but after a while, that will die down pretty fast. Yep.
Do you approach tools development sort of incidentally, or do you factor it in as part of the planning process when you're looking for things?
Personally, I'm kind of all over the place. When I'm making something, I will make it for myself first, and it's kind of tied into the project, and it's very hard to make modular, right? And then I'll look at all things that I've made, and I'll be like, okay, you know what, this could be something that I could use in other projects. And then that's kind of my thought process, where as soon as I think that now, I kind of jump to, oh, you know what, this could be a tool that other people can use, and I'll just kind of clean this up. So yeah, usually it's not me thinking of what tools I can make and sell. It's literally always starting as, okay, this is a tool that's cool to use and other people can use it, so I'm gonna see if I can do something with this, if that makes sense. Anyone else? Yep.
What's your design process in making a tool?
I don't know, it's kind of weird. I personally, I hate using tools that are hard to use and tedious, and I like my workflow to be super tight and fast, right? So when I'm making tools, I usually, even when they're not meant to be released to the public, I'm making them very usable. For example, so say someone else jumped on the project and started working with me or working with my studio that I work at, they would be able to pick it up very fast, right? So usually it's just with the fact that other people might come on board in mind. So I kind of try to look at it from someone else's perspective to make sure that they can use it really quickly without asking too many questions, in case I'm not there to answer questions, right?
What are the steps you take? What do you plan first, to make? The UI or the actual functionality?
A lot of the times the functionality is already there, actually. And then the UI kind of comes as a next layer to make it kind of more easy. At Mountains, we were making some tools that started as just menu items, right? You'd select something from menu and click it, and it would just automate a process. And then we turn it into an actual level manager or something that has a full UI to look at and stuff. Yeah. So it's kind of more of a based on need, I guess. If we need it to be easier and we need people designers or something to come on and use it, then we'll make it a lot easier for them to use. With that, yeah. Anyone else? Yep.
Do you provide the source code
For the tools that I released, yeah, I do. Yeah. There are some people who don't, and I think on the asset store that's kind of not a very good thing, because it's kind of the whole problem where Unity is a closed architecture, so you can't actually change a lot of stuff in the engine. And people kind of get angry about that, because when something breaks, you have to wait weeks for Unity to fix it, right? Whereas releasing the source, people can go in and change whatever they want. I had some people add different functionality to Dialogger, and they're like, oh, it'd be cool if you added this. And I'm like, oh, it's making it a little more complicated, but yeah, that's actually really cool you did that. So yeah, I feel like it can suit people's needs better like that. Yeah. Yep.
When providing open source for your tools, do you have to worry about tool piracy and people taking your tool and selling it themselves?
I was actually really happy the first time I saw Dialogger was being pirated. It was kind of cool. I found it on this Unity free assets website. And I'm like, oh shit, that kind of sucks. But then I realized that I didn't really care too much about it. But yeah, I mean, depending on what you're doing, yeah, I guess you do have to worry about piracy. But I'm kind of the opinion that piracy is at this point kind of something that people do in order to try things out or to yeah. So I'm not too worried about it, honestly. But anyone else? Yeah.
Tony, from your experience, should a finished tool require any additional coding input from the user, or should it be published in Kotlin framework?
Yeah, I would say depending on the tool. So for example, Dialogger does need a little bit of coding. You need to use one line of code every time you want to run a certain dialogue. But a lot of tools, I would say, especially lately, there are tools that actually generate code themselves. and so like they kind of require no coding. So yeah, it honestly depends on what you're doing, but if you can make it so that you don't need to code anything at all, I think that's kind of like a really good thing, yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
Can you have any tips on how to help the client when they game
Yeah, see, that's a tough one. You have to, I think you have to just be good at estimating your own time, right? It's very easy to get lost making tools for like weeks, and then kind of go back to your game and be like, oh, yeah, I forgot about this. Like this is, which is fine. I mean, if you're enjoying that and you see some sort of merit in that, sure, why not? But yeah, I think what you need to keep in mind is that you're making this for the purpose of making your game easier, right? And so you don't want to waste too much time or take too much time away from your game. So it's kind of a delicate balancing act, yeah. Yep.
Which programming language or which tool do you use to regularly run?
So for me, like, I started in Unity, like making tools in Unity, because Unity has a very good tool API. Like their editor API is like very, very good. I'm not sure how true this is, but like Unity, I heard like Unity itself is actually made in its own editor API, right? Which is cool because you have access to all of that. But yeah, like I've been making a lot of like Windows form-based tools lately, or like console-based tools, just simple things to kind of automate certain processes. But yeah, there's a lot of different things you can go into. Like I usually just use C# to answer the language question. But yeah. Anyone else? Yep.
I'm only sort of getting more into programming lately, and I want to learn more. But I have been making a little RPG style-based game, and I use like I started using Excel for maps and then different
Oh, wow, yeah.
and things on all these different spreadsheets. It's a bit funky. And now I'm using tiles, but I really love to make a better tile editor where it kind of brings it all together.
Right.
I've chatted with some of you guys who I work with, and they've suggested things like forms, or maybe even making something in Unity. Do you have any opinions on what might be good for that sort of thing? I guess if you were a good programmer, or even if you're a less of a programmer, or would forms be a good option for that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think like in a case like that, if you're sure that the development is going to stay in Unity, I think doing it in Unity is probably your best bet, because it gives you a lot of ways to like tie into the editor and kind of like you can create a canvas right in the game view and like just paint on that, and like actually like their new tiling stuff that they're releasing soon, like that's kind of they release an all open source, and it's kind of using the existing functionality they have now. But if you are like you're saying, you're using tiled, if you do it in something external, that is probably going to take a little more time, because you're going to need to make the tool, and then you're going to need to make something in Unity that can import the data from that tool, right? So yeah, I think it's you have to consider, like, weigh your options, think about what's going to take more and what's going to be easier on you, right? But yeah, I would suggest doing it in Unity in that case, yeah. Anyone else? Questions? Yep.
So how do you approach, I guess, storing, loading, managing, processing data in your tool system? And because a lot of tools are centered around managing data and transforming from various ways, nations and sources.
So depending on what you're using, I think, like in Unity, they have a really, the Unity serialization stuff is really good. You can use like scriptable objects that save as actual files, and you can load them at runtime or in the editor, so it's really versatile. Otherwise, I would say, serialize something to XML or serialize something to JSON and save it as a text file, or binary serialize it and save it as a, like a file alongside whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Honestly, the best thing to do is do whatever is going to be easiest and fastest for you. I don't think there's really a right or wrong way, honestly. Yeah. Questions? It's loud. Sorry. Cool. Well, that's. I guess that's it.